I remember perfectly the morning when everything changed. I got out of bed like every day, with that familiar pain that had become part of me. But this time it was different. It wasn't just discomfort. It was a feeling of stiffness and weakness in my legs that made me stagger. I felt I couldn't take even 2 steps without holding on to something. That's when I knew something was very wrong. For months, every movement was a battle. Climbing stairs left me short of breath. Walking down the street became a challenge. Sometimes, when crossing my front door, I had to stand still for a moment, giving my legs time to respond. What used to be simple was now a daily struggle. And with that came something worse than pain: dependence. Having to ask for help to move, to reach things, to simply live, is one of the hardest things to accept when you have been an active person your whole life. I felt frustrated, powerless. Each day I seemed more like a shadow of the man I once was. I tried everything: doctors, tests, creams, pills, massages. Some treatments eased the discomfort a little, but none solved the problem at its root. They all told me the same thing: it's age. As if at a certain age one had to resign oneself to living with pain. Until one day, purely by chance, I heard about a vitamin. One that had never been mentioned to me, neither in appointments nor in tests. I didn't think much of it at first, but something inside me said it was worth a try. After all, I had already tried everything else. Today, I walk without pain. I move freely. And more importantly, I regained something I thought I'd lost: confidence in my own body. That's why I want to tell you my story. Not because I have a magic solution, but because perhaps, like me, you too are looking for a way out. A hope. A way to move again without fear, without pain, and without depending on anyone. Have you also felt weakness in your legs? How many years old are you, and from where are you watching this video? I'd love to read you in the comments. It didn't happen overnight, but it didn't take years either. The deterioration arrived like a cold breeze, gentle at first, but constant. One day I noticed it took me more time to get up from the chair. Another day that I walked more slowly. At first I justified it with the weather, tiredness, or a bad night's sleep. But soon there were no excuses left. The night cramps began. The ones that wake you up in the middle of the night and leave you breathless. Then came the insecurity when stepping. I would be walking down the street and suddenly feel my leg trembling or my ankle not responding, as if my body were no longer entirely under my control. Fear arrived without warning. Fear of tripping, of falling, of not being able to get up. I walked always looking at the ground, searching for cracks, uneven spots, anything that could make me lose my balance. And even so, I tripped more than once. A fall, no matter how minor, changes you. It doesn't just hurt your body, it hurts your pride, your independence, your confidence. I remember one particular afternoon. I was in the square, trying to walk a little, when I felt so weak that I had to sit on a bench and wait. I couldn't get home on my own. I called my granddaughter to come pick me up. When she arrived, she helped me to my feet. Her worried look hurt me more than the pain in my legs. I felt ashamed. Not because of her, she loves me, but because of me, for having reached that point. And the thing is, walking, what was throughout my life a source of pleasure, freedom, reflection, became an obligation. I no longer went out for a stroll. I went out because I had to, sometimes just to go to the pharmacy or the store. And every time I did, it was with the fixed thought of how to get back without anything happening to me. I used to walk to think, to breathe, to see life. I went to the park, downtown, anywhere. I enjoyed seeing people, feeling the air on my face, moving my body. Now I walked hunched over, tense, counting the steps, monitoring the pains. What used to be freedom became an invisible prison. And it's not only physical. Leg pain drags emotions along with it: frustration, sadness, mental fatigue. I felt I was dimming, becoming older with each step I took, as if instead of living my 80 years, I were just enduring them. I know I'm not the only one. I've seen friends go through the same, some with a cane, others with a walker, others who no longer leave the house. And everyone says the same thing. It's not the age, it's the body that no longer responds. But something inside me refused to give up. I couldn't accept that walking, something so basic, was now a daily suffering. There had to be a way to improve, not to run a marathon, but to regain the most important thing, my autonomy. That was the point at which I understood I couldn't just wait for my body to decide for me. I had to do something. And although I didn't know it then, that decision would lead me to discover a small key that would change everything. When you begin to feel that your legs no longer respond as before, the first thing you think is that it's normal, that it's age. But why is it precisely the legs that fail first? Why not the arms, the eyes, the back? I asked myself that too. And at that moment I started to look for answers. What I discovered surprised me. It turns out that the legs, being the largest muscles in the body, are also the ones that lose strength the fastest when they're not used enough. And yes, with the years, that accelerates. At 60 or 70 years old, we begin to lose muscle mass almost without realizing it. They call it sarcopenia, but you don't need to know the name. What matters is what we feel. Weakness, tremors, tiredness when walking. And it's not just age. There are many factors that gradually weaken the legs. The first is lack of use. When we stop walking long distances, when we spend more time sitting, when we avoid stairs or slopes, our muscles start to shut down. And not because we are ill, but because we no longer give them work. The second cause is poor circulation. As we age, blood doesn't flow with the same force to the extremities. That causes heaviness, cramps, tingling. Sometimes we think it's just fatigue, but in reality, it's the body calling for help. The legs need oxygen, and if blood doesn't reach them well, the whole system begins to fail. Then there's diet. In my generation, no one talked about proteins, vitamins, nutrients. We ate what there was, period. But today we know that a poor diet can leave the body without what it needs to stay strong. If we don't consume enough of certain minerals like magnesium or potassium, or if we lack vitamin D, the legs suffer. And be careful with something as simple as water. Many older people don't drink enough. They think 1 glass a day is enough, but it isn't. Dehydration makes muscles work worse, become stiff, and those stabbing pains that limit us appear. Something as basic as drinking water can make a difference. There's also a detail no one tells you. The body doesn't give loud warnings. The signs are subtle. A small pain here, a loss of balance there. Until one day, without realizing it, you can no longer walk more than 10 minutes without feeling your legs give out. And at that point, many simply give up. In my case, I thought it was normal, that I was getting old, period. But then I spoke with a physical therapist who told me clearly, "Your legs aren't old, they're neglected." That phrase hit me. He was right. For years I took care of everything except them. In my generation, no one talked about caring for the legs. We were taught to work hard, to be strong, to not complain. But no one told us that muscles can be nourished, exercised, recovered, even after 70, 80, or beyond. And so I understood something key. The legs don't fail just because. They fail because we let them. Because we don't care for them, don't use them, don't nourish them as we should. But I also understood something even more important. If they failed through neglect, they can also improve with attention. That idea gave me hope. If I could identify what I was doing wrong, maybe I was still in time to regain strength, to move again with freedom. It was then that I decided to research more. And it was on that path that I discovered something that would completely change my relationship with movement. A vitamin forgotten by many, but vital for the legs. When the pain in my legs became part of my daily life, I did what anyone would do: look for solutions. At first, I thought resting more, walking less, sleeping better would be enough. But relief never came. So I began to try everything people recommended. I went to the pharmacy and brought back an arsenal of ointments. One for muscle pain, another for circulation, another with menthol for a cooling sensation. I applied them 3 times a day. Some calmed the burning for a while, Others gave a false feeling of relief, but none solved the root problem. The pain was still there, patiently waiting for the cream to evaporate. Then came the massages. They recommended a therapist who worked wonders with legs. And yes, the first days I left feeling looser, lighter. But after a week, everything went back to how it was before. The body relaxed for a few hours, but the problem remained anchored where it had always been. I also tried exercises. I printed out sheets with routines for older people, stretches, leg raises, chair exercises. I did what I could. Some days I felt motivated, other days I could barely complete one set. And the worst part wasn't the physical effort, but the constant doubt. Am I doing this right? Does this really help? The doctors prescribed medications, painkillers, anti-inflammatories, even some generic supplements. They told me they helped control the pain. And yes, for a time that was so. But the body gets used to it. What worked at first soon stopped working, and each new pill came with a new warning. Thus the months went by, alternating between one product and another, between hope and frustration. I became an expert in temporary solutions. Each day was a silent battle against pain, stiffness, the feeling that my legs were no longer part of me, but just one more obstacle. I remember a particular day that changed everything. I was in the kitchen, taking a cup from the upper cabinet. As I came down, I felt a pull in my calf. Nothing serious, I thought. I took a step, and my left leg simply didn't respond. I lost my balance and fell to one side. It wasn't a dramatic fall. I didn't break anything. But I lay there, on the floor, staring at the ceiling, with a mix of shame, helplessness, and anger. That was my wake-up call. Being sprawled on the floor of your own kitchen, without the strength to get up immediately, confronts you with a very harsh truth. You're not as steady as you thought. And that hurts more than the blow. That night, while rubbing my leg with yet another cream, I thought silently, I can't go on like this. I don't want to spend the rest of my days depending on a cane or a pill just to move. I was tired. Tired of getting up each day afraid of the first step. Tired of empty promises in colorful jars. Tired of pretending I was fine when clearly I wasn't. It wasn't just physical pain. It was the mental weight of living limited, of feeling that your body no longer responds as before. Then I said it out loud, almost like a commitment to myself. Something has to change. I didn't know exactly what I should do. I only knew I couldn't keep betting on solutions that didn't work. I didn't want to cover up symptoms. I wanted to understand what was failing in me. I wanted to regain control. I wanted simply to walk without pain again. What I didn't imagine at that moment was that the answer, the key that would make the difference, was in something as small and forgotten as a vitamin. A few weeks after that fall in the kitchen, I ran into an old neighborhood friend, Mr. Matthew. He is 83 years old and walks better than many 50-year-olds. He has always been a calm but energetic man. We crossed paths by chance at the bakery, and while we waited for bread, he noticed I was leaning heavily on the cane. "What's wrong, Michael?" he asked me in his gentle tone. I told him, without going into much detail, that my legs were not what they used to be. He listened, nodding, as if he already knew what was coming. And then, almost like someone sharing a family secret, he said, "The same thing happened to me, until I started taking vitamin D." I fell silent. Vitamin D. Something I had always heard mentioned because of the sun, because of bones. But never, in all my medical appointments, in all the prescriptions and tests, had anyone recommended it to me as part of a treatment to regain leg strength. It doesn't work miracles, he clarified. But if you're lacking it, you'll notice the difference. At first, I was skeptical. I thought it was one of those new fads, something that becomes popular one year and disappears the next. But that same afternoon, I got home and started researching. And the more I read, the more sense it made. It turns out vitamin D not only strengthens bones, but is also fundamental for muscle function. It helps muscles work properly, maintain balance, and prevent weakness. Moreover, many older people are deficient without knowing it, especially if they don't get sun exposure or don't have a varied diet. I went to the doctor with that information in hand. I asked for a test to check my levels, and yes, as I suspected, they were well below ideal. He prescribed a daily supplement, in drops, easy to take, without side effects. That's how my first month with the vitamin began. I wasn't expecting big changes. In fact, the first days I noticed nothing. But little by little, something started to happen. At the end of the first week, I realized that when getting up in the mornings, my legs weren't as stiff. When walking around the house, I could do it with less support from the cane. One day, without noticing, I climbed the 2 steps of the porch without stopping, and when I realized it, I stopped short. I smiled. It was something small, yes, but it was a beginning. As the days went by, the night cramps diminished. I began to sleep better. I had more energy during the day. It wasn't as if I had rejuvenated 20 years, but it was as if an invisible weight that had been crushing me for a long time had been lifted. My mood changed too. I felt more encouraged, more active, eager to go out, to move. I no longer avoided walking. I no longer saw it as punishment. For the first time in a long time, I enjoyed a simple walk around the block again. And then, one ordinary morning, I got out of bed and walked toward the kitchen. And there, I noticed it. I didn't feel afraid. I didn't feel the need to grab the edge of the bed or to measure each step as if walking on ice. For the first time in years, I did not fear tripping when I got up. It was a simple, quiet moment, but profoundly powerful. Because when you've spent years waking up with pain, insecurity, or frustration, regaining that small gesture, walking without fear, feels like a true miracle. From that day on, I knew I had found something valuable. Not a magic cure, but a key piece no one had given me before. A vitamin that, although small, was giving me back something immense. Freedom. The vitamin my friend told me about, and that changed my life, is one we all know by name, but few truly value. Vitamin D. Yes, the same one that always gets mentioned when people talk about the sun. For years I thought it was only for bones, and that going outside for a while was enough to get it. But I was wrong. Vitamin D is not just important, it is essential, especially for older adults. Let me explain it simply. Vitamin D acts like a kind of conductor inside the body. It helps the calcium we consume bind well to the bones. Without it, calcium is lost, not used. But that's not all. It also plays a crucial role in muscle function. Without enough vitamin D, muscles weaken, tire faster, lose strength. And guess which part of the body needs that strength the most? Exactly, the legs. They are the largest muscles in the body. They are what keep us standing, allow us to move, to support ourselves, to maintain balance. When they lack vitamin D, they begin to fail, and we feel it with every step. The comparison Mr. Matthew made was very clear. It's like putting oil on a rusty hinge. For years, my legs were like a stiff door that squeaked every time I opened it. It hurt. It was hard. But with vitamin D, I began to notice that hinge, my muscles, my bones, becoming smoother, more reliable. Vitamin D deficiency is much more common than we think, especially from 60 or 70 years onward. The reason? Very simple. We stop exposing ourselves to the sun as before. We spend more time indoors. Our skin, as it ages, also loses part of its capacity to produce this vitamin. And if on top of that, our diet doesn't always include fatty fish, eggs, or fortified dairy, the result is a silent deficit. The trickiest part is that vitamin D deficiency doesn't show up all at once. There isn't a clear signal. It's like a fog that settles slowly. More joint pain, more fatigue, more falls, more difficulty getting up. And since all that resembles normal aging, we don't question it. We think that's how it is. But it doesn't have to be that way. We are not talking about a complex medicine. It's not an expensive or invasive treatment. It's simply giving the body what it has lost over the years, replacing what used to be produced naturally and now needs a small external help. Since I began taking it regularly, along with some gentle exercise and more mindful eating, my body has changed. Not spectacularly, not from one day to the next, but in a real way. Better balance, more security when walking, less pain, and something harder to measure, but just as important, more confidence in myself. And I want to make something clear here. It's not just about living longer. It's about moving with dignity, being able to get out of bed without fear, walking through your home without thinking you're going to fall, going outside and enjoying the world without pain, without constant limitations. Vitamin D isn't a magic solution, but it can be a key piece. Sometimes what we need most isn't something complex, but something basic and well applied. Something the body has been silently asking for years. That's why I'm telling you this, because no one told me before. Because if I had known this 10 years ago, maybe I would have saved myself many falls, many jars of ointment, many nights of frustration. If you also feel your legs no longer respond as before, if pain accompanies you more than you'd like, ask yourself this: how much vitamin D do you have in your body? Maybe that's where the change begins. Before discovering what my body needed, I lived in a kind of fog. I woke up tired, even after sleeping 8 hours. It wasn't that normal tiredness you feel after a long day, no. It was something deeper, more persistent, as if the body were dragging an invisible weight from within. My legs noticed it most, of course, but they weren't the only ones. It was hard to get up from the armchair. Climbing one step was a task that made me stop to catch my breath. I had muscle pains almost every day, especially in the calves, the thighs, even the lower back. They weren't sharp pains, but they were constant, like a soft alarm that never turns off. I also began to sleep worse. It was hard to fall asleep, and when I finally did, I woke up several times during the night. Sometimes because of cramps, sometimes simply from discomfort. And the next day, the fatigue was even greater, a kind of circle that seemed impossible to escape. For a long time, I attributed all of that to age, to the years, to the normality of being over 70. Until I understood that many of those symptoms are typical of a vitamin D deficiency. They are not loud signals, but they are firm. They wear you down. They steal your energy, your security, and your health without you fully noticing. The day I decided to talk seriously with my doctor, I told him all of this: the tiredness, the weakness, the pains, the insomnia. And to my surprise, he didn't prescribe another pill. He asked for something much simpler, a blood test. With that basic test, which didn't even take 5 minutes, we learned that my vitamin D levels were below the minimum recommended. It wasn't an emergency, but it was a clear warning. We had to act before the deterioration got worse. My doctor was very direct. Many older adults like you are deficient and don't know it, and when we correct it, the improvement is very noticeable. He recommended starting with a low daily dose, easy to take and without side effects. In my case, it was drops, which I simply added to a little water in the morning. But he also gave me a warning that I want to share with you today. Not all bodies are the same. Not everyone needs the same amount. That's why, before jumping into supplements on your own, talk to a professional. A simple test can give you a clear answer and help you avoid mistakes. Because although vitamin D is safe in most cases, taking too much without supervision can also cause problems. Everything must be adjusted to your situation, your health, your age, and your daily habits. What's important here is not only knowing which vitamin you need, but how and how much your body needs it. The good news is that finding out is easy. No need for hospitalization or spending a fortune. You just have to pay attention and make yourself heard. I spent years believing my body was aging normally. And yet, what it lacked was something as simple as this. Today, every time I get up without fear, every time I take a firm step without pain, I'm grateful I took that test. Because that small act made a big difference. If you feel more tired than usual, if walking wears you out more than before, if muscle pains are already part of your routine, maybe your body is talking to you. Maybe it's asking for something it's missing. And maybe, as happened to me, a simple drop a day can be the first step toward a life with more energy, more movement, and more dignity. To say that everything changed solely because of the vitamin would be to lie to you. The truth is, it was a key piece, yes, but not the only one. What really made the difference was understanding that my body needed more than a supplement. It needed movement, nutrition, and a bit of daily discipline. After a couple of weeks taking vitamin D, I started to feel a little stronger. Not much, but enough to think, what if I start moving a bit more? So that's what I did. I started with something simple. No gyms, machines, or big routines. Just gentle stretches in the morning, right there in the bedroom. I got up, sat on the edge of the bed, and stretched my legs for a couple of minutes. Then I made circular movements with my ankles, flexed my feet, moved my knees, all very gentle, without forcing anything. The goal wasn't to tire myself out, it was to wake the body up. Then I started walking inside the house. At first, just from the bedroom to the dining room, then back and forth down the hallway for 5 minutes. I made it a habit. Every morning after breakfast I walked. Sometimes with soft music, other times in silence, just listening to the sound of my own steps. It was like reminding my legs what they were made for. And so, little by little, the body began to respond. I felt more firmness when stepping, less stiffness when getting up. It was as if the muscles were waking up after a long sleep. But it wasn't only movement. I also understood that diet played a fundamental role. I began to take more care with what I ate. I increased calcium-rich foods, plain yogurt, fresh cheese, almonds. I also included more magnesium, which helps muscle function, spinach, bananas, oats, and of course proteins, eggs, fish, lentils. I didn't completely change my diet, I just adjusted small things. I swapped white bread for whole grain bread. I replaced sweets with fruit. And above all, I started drinking more water. Before, I drank very little. Now I keep a little bottle nearby all day. Hydration also affects the muscles, and I didn't know that. My daily routine became something sacred. Not perfect, but consistent. Morning stretches, gentle walking, good food, a little movement in the afternoon, and my vitamin, always at the same time. It wasn't easy every day. There were days of great tiredness, of little motivation, but I repeated something very simple to myself. I don't need to do a lot. I just need to do it every day. And that made the difference. Today, I'm not an athlete, nor do I pretend to be, but I walk more confidently. I'm no longer afraid to climb a step, nor to stay home alone. My legs are steadier, my body more awake, and best of all, my mind is calmer. Because when the body moves, the spirit also improves. There's something about movement, no matter how small, that gives us back the feeling of being alive, of being in control. So if you're listening to me and you think it's too late, that you can't, that it's no longer worth it, I want to tell you this: you don't need a gym. You need consistency. It's not about running, it's about not stopping, about taking steps, even short ones, about doing something every day to remind your body that it still can. And believe me, when you do, the body responds. And with time, it even thanks you for it. Today, when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is give thanks. Not only because I have another day ahead, but because I can get up without fear, without pain, without that stiffness that used to trap me from my hips to my feet. I can put my feet on the floor and walk to the kitchen without stopping to think whether I'll make it. That gesture, so simple, so everyday, is a true gift to me. My cane, that inseparable companion for years, now rests leaning in a corner. I haven't thrown it away. You never know when it might come in handy. But I no longer need it at every step. I go out alone, without help, without fear. I go to the store, to the park, to visit my grandchildren. And when I walk, I do it upright. I no longer drag myself. I no longer struggle. I walk freely. Sleep has changed too. Where there used to be insomnia and endless tossing and turning, now there's rest. When the body doesn't hurt, it relaxes. Sleep is deeper. And upon waking, I feel energized, as I hadn't felt in years. But the nicest part of this change is not only what I feel, but what others see. My children, who used to be worried, now call me and say, "Dad, you're better, right?" We can hear it in your voice. My neighbors, who used to see me walking slowly along the sidewalk, now greet me with a smile. "Mr. Michael, how obvious it is that you've improved." Even my doctor, when I went for my last checkup, was surprised. He had me walk from one side of the office to the other and said, "Congratulations, you're much steadier. Keep it up." All of that, those small things, made me realize how far I had come. I'm not saying I'm who I was before. The years still weigh, of course, but they no longer weigh on my legs. They no longer weigh on my soul. Regaining movement is not just a physical matter. It's emotional, mental, spiritual even. When you can't move well, you start to shut yourself in your house, in your mind, in your fear, and that steals your joy, your self-esteem, your will. But when you walk without pain again, when you realize you can go out without help, something inside you changes. It's as if you recover a part of yourself that you had lost without noticing, as if you became yourself again. Today I do things I didn't even consider before. I water the plants. I tidy my closet. I walk with my grandchildren. I climb stairs. I go down to the park. I sit on a bench to bask in the sun. And all of that, which seems so simple, is what makes me feel alive. I've realized it's not about doing great things, but about enjoying small ones, about moving without pain, about not depending on anyone, about being able to say, "Today I'm going out because I want to, not because they're taking me." And if I had to sum up this whole path, this change, this transformation in one sentence, it would be this: walking without pain gave me back my dignity. Because when you can move freely, when your body responds, something in your spirit awakens as well. And then, life stops being a struggle, to become a joy again. Up to this point, I've told you my story, how I went from walking with fear and pain to moving freely. But now, before you make any decision, I want to speak to you with complete honesty. Because this isn't about miracles, it's about awareness, care, and well-considered steps. The first thing you should know is this: do not self-medicate. Yes, I improved thanks to vitamin D, but not everyone has the same needs, nor the same health conditions. What helped me might help you differently, or you might need to adjust the dose, the form, or the timing. That's why the most important thing before starting is to consult your trusted doctor. With a simple blood test, you can know whether you lack vitamin D and at what level your body is. That information is gold, because it lets you make decisions safely, not based on assumptions. And furthermore, if you're already taking other medications, your doctor will know how to make everything work together, without risks. I don't want you to think this is a miraculous cure either. It isn't. Vitamin D doesn't erase 20 years of wear. It doesn't make you young overnight. But it can give you that push your body needs to start regaining strength, energy, and mobility. I experienced it. What it gave me was a foundation, a sort of firm ground on which I could build new habits, new routines. But without movement, without good food, without a bit of daily discipline, the results would be much slower, or simply wouldn't arrive. So, if you decide to start this path, do it fully. Here are some tips that worked for me and may help you too. Consult a professional before taking supplements. Ask for a blood test to know your vitamin D level. Take the supplement always at the same time of day with a meal. Make use of the sun. 15 minutes outdoors each day help a lot. Move, even a little, even inside the house. The body needs activation. Mind your diet. More calcium, more proteins, more vegetables. Drink water. It seems minor, but hydration improves the whole system. And most importantly, don't give up if you don't see immediate results. This takes time. I began to notice small changes at 2 weeks and important changes at 1 month. But every body is different. The key is consistency. Not giving up at the second try, trusting the process. I also want to tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. Don't wait until you can't move to act. Don't wait to fall. to depend on the cane, to be afraid of being alone at home. The earlier you start, the easier it will be to prevent deterioration. The easier it will be to regain strength, balance, freedom. And if you're already at a point where it's very hard to walk, where every step feels like an effort, don't lose hope. You can always improve something. Always. Even if just a little. Even if it means starting by lifting your legs in bed each morning, everything adds up. Remember this, it's not about going far. It's about being able to move, about living with dignity, about knowing you are still in charge of your body, that you can take that step without fear. And that, with a little help, like this vitamin and some good habits, that step can be the beginning of a new stage in your life. If you've made it this far, I can only say thank you. Thank you for listening, for accompanying me on this journey that began with pain and ended with hope. I look back and I still find it hard to believe how far I've come. From being unable to get up without pain to walking firmly again. From depending on others for the simplest things to regaining my freedom. And it all started with something small, recognizing there was a problem, accepting that it wasn't normal to live with pain, and that I had the right to look for a solution. Then came the second step, taking action, getting that test, starting with the vitamin, changing my routine, watching what I eat, moving, even if at first it was only 5 minutes a day. And most importantly, not giving up. Being consistent, even when I didn't feel like it. Because the body improves with what you do every day, not with what you do from time to time. Today I can tell you this with certainty. It is possible to get better. It doesn't matter if you are 60, 70, 80 or more. There is always something that can be done. There is always a small step that can make a difference, and many times you just need someone to remind you. I'm not saying everything is easy, nor that everyone will improve in the same way, but I do want to leave this idea in your heart. At any age, it is always worth trying, because the body, even with years on it, responds, it adapts, it appreciates care. Perhaps right now you are listening to me from your bed with leg pain. Maybe it's hard for you to walk, you feel tired, or you feel it's too late to start. But it isn't too late. It's never too late. If I, at over 80 years old, could feel strong again, you can too. You only need information, will, and to begin. Not tomorrow, not on Monday. Today, with one small step. Because that first step might be the one that changes everything. So here my story ends, but maybe today yours begins. Before I go, I want to ask you something. I want to get to know you. How many years old are you? And from where are you watching this video? Leave it in the comments. You are not alone. Many of us are on this path of learning to take better care of ourselves. And if this video helped you, share it with someone who needs it. A friend, a sister, a neighbor. Sometimes what changes a life is not a medicine. It's a word at the right time. Thank you for being here. I'm sending you a big hug. And remember, if I could, you can too.